Hi everyone, Miss Kramer here. Today we're going to be working on our still life post drawing. That means the second drawing. You already did one all by yourself to show us what you could do all on your own. Now today I get to teach you some big kid stuff and some artist tricks. So get ready. So you're going to need to have a blank piece of paper, and we're going to have our blank piece of paper so it is horizontal when we're working on it. You need Mr. Pencil. Always need Mr. Pencil. Always, always. And you're going to need a box of crayons. My box is 24, but it's okay if you don't have that many, or if you have more, that's great too. All right, so we're going to get started here. First thing an artist does is we always look at and see how our paper should be. So as I said, it's horizontal. So if we look at the picture, see how it's sideways? It's not tall way, so that's horizontal. So we'll make sure your paper is horizontal, and then the first time some of you drew this, you drew it kind of itty bitty teeny tiny. So you might have drawn like this, which was okay. But I'm going to teach you how to maybe just draw a little bit bigger to take up the space and make it look a little bit more realistic. So if yours was smaller, it's okay. I'm just going to show you a couple tricks on how to get it maybe spaced out a little bit better. So first thing we do is we always look at our picture, and I always like to draw a line right down the middle. So when I do that, with my eraser and my eraser only, I draw a line right down the middle. So right down the middle. That just gives me an idea of the middle, and I see that the sunflower is in the middle. So that kind of gives me a good, I'm planning it out right now before I draw anything on my paper. And I'm using my eraser to help me. So if you have an eraser, if you don't have an eraser on your pencil, if you have a pink eraser, you just use the corner of the eraser and you draw. So I'm going to actually draw the sunflower. I'm just going to put a circle just so I can kind of see where the sunflower is. Now I know you can't see it on mine because it doesn't show up. But if we go ahead and put a circle where the sunflower is kind of in the middle, and then with our eraser, we'll just do maybe like a square right now or a rectangle right now for the basket. And then we get the idea that that's going to fit in there. And then we need to make sure we have enough room for our orange vase. So I'm going to just draw a real big rectangle just over here, just so I know I have space for it. So that works. Here's the basket. Here's where the vase is going to go. Then I'm going to look at the blue bottle, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle for that right now, just to make sure I have space for it. And then my green bottle, I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to draw a big triangle for that one. So what I've done with my eraser is made sure I have room for everything on my paper before I actually start drawing. And that just kind of helps you guide through your drawing before you even put any pencil on your paper. So you can't see the pink, but on yours, hopefully you can kind of see where your things are. Now that I know everything's going to fit, I'm just going to leave it and use it as a little guideline. But what we need to do to start with, after we hit and make sure everything's going to fit, we're going to look at what's in front. The closest thing to us, the closest thing in this picture is actually the gourd. A gourd is a relative of a pumpkin. It's just a little baby, kind of like a baby pumpkin sometimes. This one actually has a different shape to it, and we're going to talk about that shape in just a second. So we're going to draw that first because it's in the foreground, and whenever anything's in the foreground, it's in the front, so that means it's first. So foreground, front, first. They all start with F's, so that'll help remind you. So we're going to draw the gourd. So I'm going to look at where the gourd is. And if I know where my middle line is, where I have my sunflower, I have my basket right here. So I need to put my gourd in front of the basket. But notice how it's not touching the bottom of the paper. So I'm going to find the space where my gourd is. And it's up from the bottom just a little bit. And I'm actually going to draw a straight line at the bottom to start my gourd, because we're actually going to use a triangle to help us, a triangle that's laying down on its side. So if you draw a straight line for the bottom of the gourd, now I'm going to have you draw a triangle, but you're going to go up just a little bit and then come back down to the front of that line. So it's a triangle shape, but it's laying down on its side, because we need to have it look like it's laying down, because this gourd actually fell over. So we're going to draw the bottom. So I'm going to show you with marker. You're using pencil. So I'm drawing the bottom of the gourd first. Now I use triangle to help me, but I'm actually going to curve the edges. They're not going to be sharp edges. So what I'm going to do is I have that line. Now I'm going to curve and curve and then curve. So see how I made it kind of round instead of corners? Each of these corners turned into a curved line, rounded. Okay, so that kind of helps us get our shape for our gourd. And then there's an actual stem right at the end, so you can just draw a little stem. And if you look, there's actually a part where it's green and orange. We're actually going to draw the line between the green and the orange. We're going to draw that, so when we color it, we remember to color those two different colors. Now I'm going to show you how to make the lines in the gourd so it looks like it's three-dimensional. That's one of the tricks that we do. So the first thing we do is when you draw a line, for this, we want it to curve. So we're going to follow the edge and we're going to curve the line so it follows the curve of the edge of the gourd. And then we're going to make this one down here curve down just a little bit. Down. And then we're going to put one more curve right in the middle. So that makes it look like it's kind of round. It's three-dimensional. So that gives us just an illusion of it being round instead of flat. Okay, so that's just a little trick that we do as an artist. Now the next thing we're going to do is look at the basket, and if you see, the basket's hiding behind the gourd just a little bit. So I'm doing overlapping. I'm going to put a little bit of the basket, the bottom of the basket, on the right side, and then I'm going to bring out the other side of the basket, jump, 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 come across, and I'm going to have my basket come out. Now remember not to go too far, because we should have a room for our blue bottle and our green bottle. So that's the trick, and that's why we did that with the eraser. So hopefully you can still see that. And then what we're going to do for the basket is actually a trapezoid. So we're going to make this angle up a little bit and up a little bit, just a little bit of an angle, not a big steep one, just a little bit, and then come all the way across, straight across for the top of the basket. Now on the basket, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to show you how to do the texture in the basket in just a second, but we have to do something first. We have to be thinking as an artist. So if we look at the grapes, see how the grapes are hanging over the edge of the basket? We need to create the grapes first before we do the texture in the basket. Because if we did the texture first, then the grapes would have basket texture, and grapes don't have basket texture. So we're going to create the grapes next. So I'm going to look at here, and I'm going to look at the grapes, and I'm just going to make some nice size circles. I don't want them itty bitty teeny tiny, but some good size circles, and they're going to come down, and they're hanging down. They come almost to the bottom of the basket. So I'm going to bring them down, and then I'm going to do maybe a half circle where I'm doing overlapping, just a half circle, half circle, half circle, half circle, and that shows the overlapping. Okay, so you can have some overlapping in there. So we have our grapes first, and that way we don't have to worry about the basket texture messing up our grapes. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is draw a thin line right across the top of the basket. Thin line. That's the top of the basket. A basket is actually made out of reed, and it's woven together. And on this top of the basket, it's actually spiral. It's a spiral all the way around. So in order to create that, we're going to do diagonal lines right on the top of the basket. Diagonal means just a little bit of an angle, and that makes it look like it's wrapped around. So it's a little trick that we do as artists. And then the next part of our basket, we're actually going to make it a little bit simpler than you might think, because baskets aren't as hard as you think. There's actually a repeat pattern in them. So I'm going to draw a line that goes all the way across, jump where my grapes are, draw another line, jump where my gourd is, jump where my grapes are. Now, I was able to put 2 lines in. Now, you might be able to put 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 lines in your basket. That's totally fine. So, however many you have is okay. And what we're going to do is create a pattern, a repeat pattern to create the illusion of the basket. So what we're going to do on this first row, we're going to start here with a rectangle. So I'm just going to draw a line to make this a rectangle. See how that's a rectangle? Now I'm going to make a square, and I'm going to color it in with my pencil. So this is the one time you're allowed to color in with Mr. Pencil. Not the only time, but it's one time. So rectangle, square. Now I'm going to leave space for a rectangle. Make another square. Color it in with your pencil. Rectangle, square. And the square crashes into the grapes. Okay. Now there's a rectangle hiding behind the grapes. So then I should have one more square down here at the end. Now you'll just have to see where your grapes fall and if it goes rectangle or square behind it. So you just want to be thinking this is a repeat pattern. Rectangle, square, rectangle, square, rectangle, square, rectangle, square. Okay, it's just a little bit tricky when you have things that are overlapping. Now, for the second row, we have to do the opposite. We're going to alternate, so it's the opposite. So now what I'm going to do, instead of starting with a rectangle for the second one, I'm going to start with a square. So now I'm doing square, then rectangle. Now my square hides behind my gourd a little bit, so I'm just going to draw the top of the square. See how it just peeked out right there? And then I have a square here, so I need a rectangle. And then a square below where the rectangle is. So wherever there's a rectangle, there should be a square below it. So you never want to have square, square, or rectangle, rectangle. Okay? So then my rectangle's next, and I see a little bit of a square here. And then my square, square, rectangle, I think that's the end of that one because of the overlapping. Now the next one we're going to do matches the first row. So the first and the third row are going to be the same. The second and the fourth, if you have a fourth row, is going to be the same. So now I'm going to copy this first one. I never want to have a square next to a square, so this is my rectangle, which works out great because it runs right into my gourd. Now there's some things hiding behind the gourd, so I can't see that. So I have to look at this square and know that I'm going to have a rectangle right there because the square and the rectangle have to be on top of one another. And then if I look at my first row, I can actually copy the square onto my third row because the first row and the third row are going to match. The second and the fourth. So your odd numbers and your even numbers go together. Okay, so we have our square and then our rectangle. And then we have one more square to finish it off. So we have what's called a repeat pattern, and it creates the illusion of a basket. And then we have some overlapping in here to make it more big kid. So we have our gourd and our grapes. Now we're going to get our lemon in place. And I like to use my eraser first always whenever I can. So I'm going to take my eraser, and it shows that the lemon is hiding behind the grapes. So I'm going to start at my grapes and come over and crash into the edge of my basket. So I'm going to fill that whole space right there with the lemon. So I'm going to bring this all the way over and crash. Okay, now a lemon is a citrus fruit. Citrus fruit, you might remember from past years, has dots on it. That's the texture that we use on our citrus fruit. Now right now, you're not going to be able to tell that's a lemon until we color it. So right now, it's a citrus fruit. We just don't know which kind. But the one good thing about being an artist, once you color adds a lot of information and detail. So once we color that yellow, we'll know it's a lemon. Now we have room now for our orange and our apple. Now one thing I like to do is actually start with the orange. And I know I start with the orange because it's touching the edge of the basket. It's a little bit easier to kind of determine where that orange is because you know it's touching the edge of the basket. So I'm going to start here with the orange and come around and go about halfway in the space that I have. And then I'm going to finish the space with my apple. Now, if it works out where you're like, you have your orange and your apple and you have a whole bunch of space left, don't freak out. It's okay. I'm going to show you what to do. So mine actually worked out okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do my orange. And then I'm going to do my apple, and it crashes into the grapes. Now my orange is textured with citrus, so I'm going to do my little dots. Be nice to Mr. Pencil. Don't smash his head down on the table too hard. Be nice. And then with our apple, we're actually going to draw a little U at the top, like a smiley face, and then draw a stem sticking out of it. And that creates the illusion of the apple looks like it has a hole in it where the stem goes. That's the illusion. Now, if it worked out where you have your orange and your apple and you still have a bunch of space between your grapes and your apple, add more grapes. So it's totally fine. You can add more grapes. So if there's a bunch of space, that's one nice thing about being an artist. You can kind of change how things work out and by adding some things too. It's a little trick that artists do. All right, so we have our basket with our fruit. Now we're going to get our sunflower in. And if you look, the sunflower is right above the apple and the grapes. So I'm going to draw a nice big circle about the size of the apple, maybe just a little bit bigger. And I'm going to draw a nice big circle for the middle of the flower. So once I have that drawn and I'm happy with the size, now if you don't like it, wipe it away and start again. Okay, that's why we use our eraser. So I'm going to draw my circle for my sunflower. And then if you notice on the inside of the sunflower, there's another little circle. That's the middle of the sunflower. Now, sunflowers have seeds. So we're going to do a texture. It's different than we do for citrus fruit. Citrus is little tiny dots. On the sunflower, we're going to make dashes. So you're going to make little tiny lines just all over. They're just random. Go put them everywhere. Little tiny lines. It almost looks like a donut with sprinkles on it. So if you ever want to make a donut with sprinkles on it, this is how you would do it. But this is just a texture that we use to show that it has seeds in it. Okay. So we have our seeds. Now, next thing we're going to do is the petals. Now, we're going to use something super simple. And the reason why we do this is because each petal should be made individually. I know that sounds like, wow, that's a lot. It's really not. We're going to actually use something you guys all know how to make, bunny ears. So I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to just make a bunny ear and a bunny ear. So see how it looks like two little bunny ears? So I'm going to do that, and then I'm just going to create those bunny ears all the way around, and I'm going to do each petal by itself. I want to make sure that every petal gets to be made. Now, when it crashes into your grapes or your apple, you do your overlapping. So you hide it behind. So you're just going to do your little bunny ears all the way around until you get back up to the top. So see how it shows that each petal all the way around. Now, sunflowers have lots of petals, so we're actually going to do a second layer. So now what we're going to do is put a little baby bunny ear in between each of those. So you're going to do a little baby bunny ear right in between. This is going to help make it look more realistic because of the layering. And if you ever get a chance to look at a sunflower, there's lots of petals on a sunflower. Lots and lots. Okay, so you're doing good? And remember, you can always pause the video and rewind if you need to. Okay, so next we're going to do the orange vase. And the orange vase is super tall, so we're going to make that go all the way to the top. So what we're going to do is actually draw the bottom of the vase first, and we're going to use a trapezoid for that. So if you look, the bottom of the vase isn't touching where the bottom of the basket is, so it's up just a little bit. So I'm actually going to draw the bottom of the vase, and I'm going to make a small trapezoid for the bottom of the vase first. So I do that first. I always want to look at the simple shapes first. So here's my the bottom of my vase. And then I made a trapezoid. So a trapezoid is a triangle with a top cut off. Okay. And now you're going to take your eraser, and you want to do this with the eraser, and make this as tall as you can. Tall, 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 tall. Super tall. All the way almost to the top of the paper. And so I'm just going to make it like a funnel. So it goes up and out. So I'm going to go all the way up and all the way up. And then at the very top, I'm actually going to put a skinny little oval at the top. Skinny little oval. That's going to make it look like you can go inside it. So it makes it look three-dimensional. So see the little oval that I created at the top? That's going to help it make it look real. Okay, so simple. We do a trapezoid and then a really tall trapezoid with a skinny oval at the top. Now the next thing that we're going to do is the blue bottle. And the blue bottle we're actually going to break into simple shapes too. We're going to start with the body of the bottle and we're just going to use a rectangle. So if you look at the blue bottle, it's just sitting back a little bit here next to the basket, and I'm just going to draw a nice rectangle to start with my eraser first. So I'm just going to use my eraser. Now draw a rectangle. So I'm just going to trace what I did right here with my, so that's going to be the body of the blue bottle. Now there's a little trick to this, and I'm going to show you how to make it kind of look more realistic, but we're going to get the whole bottle drawn first. So next we're going to make a trapezoid. So we're going to angle the sides just a little bit and put a top on it, because if you look at this, it just kind of curves in a little bit here and here, and we're going to make a trapezoid. So see, I just made that trapezoid shape. Now I'm going to make the neck of the bottle, and that is a rectangle. So see, I have the rectangle at the top. So I just use a rectangle, a trapezoid, and a rectangle. Super easy. We just use our simple shapes. Okay. Now we're going to make it the fancy bottle. So if you can look very carefully at your picture, there's actually some details in this bottle that's a little bit harder to see. And if you can catch them, that's a good artist eye. So I'm going to show you, first of all, at the top, we're just going to draw a line to make a square at the very top of the bottle. And then if you look inside the very top, there's another little square, and you can kind of color that in. That is actually the cork. There's a cork that goes in that bottle. The cork stops the liquid from coming out. And instead of a twist top for like a water bottle, it has a cork that pushes on the inside. So we have the square and then the rectangle. And then in here on the trapezoid, if you make some lines for textures, that makes it look a little bit more realistic. And then on the body of the bottle, if you look right at the very top, we're going to make a skinny little oval at the very top. Super skinny oval. And then I'm going to have you make another super skinny oval just a little bit down from that. So it's like almost two ovals, but there's a little bit of space. And then maybe curve the bottle right here out. Curve the bottle. So see how I made it curve out just a little bit from the edge. And then we're going to do something called scribble texture. So you're just going to do a little scribble texture in here. There's actually a texture in the bottle right there. It's actually grapes, but we're not going to worry about the detail. And then if we go down a little bit farther, we're going to make another skinny oval at the very bottom. And then another skinny oval. And we're going to curve the bottle out just a little bit on the sides. And we're going to do a scribble texture in there too. And that just gives it more realistic. If you can see the picture, that you can see where it just kind of goes out just a little bit. So we just add that detail, because whenever we're looking with our artist eye, we want to try and find all the details that we can. And then the last thing is the bottle at the end. It looks like a triangle or a trapezoid. We're going to use a trapezoid for that. Now notice how the green bottle isn't even with the blue bottle. It's down just a little bit. So I'm going to make my bottom of my bottle down just a little bit. And then this is a tall trapezoid. But notice how it's not as tall as the blue bottle. So I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to stop it where I think it needs to stop for this part of the body of the bottle. So I'm going to stop it right about here for me. Now it might be different for you. So I'm going to draw that trapezoid. So I'm going to draw the bottom first, and then I'm going to bring it up and bring it up on this side, and then stop it right here. It's about where it stops, maybe a little bit lower, maybe a little bit taller for you. And then we're going to do a rectangle for the neck. So this part of the bottle right here is the neck. And then I'm going to create a skinny little oval. That's the mouth of the bottle. And then this one has a cork also, so you can actually take your pencil and color in where the cork is, and that is just that shows that there is something going into the bottle where it stops the liquid from coming out. So we use a trapezoid, a rectangle, an oval, and a kind of maybe a smaller square, smaller rectangle in there. Now everything's flying, and all this stuff cannot be flying. So we're going to create the table. So the table is going to come in. We're going to go right in from the edge. We're going to look and see where it crashes into the red vase. So we're going to go in here. We're going to crash, and then we're going to jump and crash into the basket. Jump. If you can sneak it out in between the basket and the blue bottle, looks like mine really doesn't, then between the blue bottle and the green bottle, and then all the way across. So now you have your table, so everything is sitting on your table. Okay? So I know that's a lot, and you can stop the video and rewind if you need to, okay? So next, we're going to do our coloring. So I'm going to get some things ready. So you go ahead and get your crayons ready, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. Okay, I went ahead and colored some of the things on my drawing just to show you what it's going to look like when it's all finished. So don't freak out that I have some colored and you don't, okay? I want to just talk to you a little bit about some of the colors, and as an artist, you always want to try and find colors that match the picture the best that you can. So sometimes that might require you to mix colors. So it's called blending or mixing. So if you look at the apple in here, the apple is actually not green. It's yellow-green. So when we're doing the coloring, we want to try and find a crayon that says yellow-green. So if you can find a crayon that says yellow-green, that's the color that you want. But if you don't have a yellow-green, you can actually make your own. So we're going to actually take yellow and green and make our own yellow-green. That way, if you don't have one of this color, it's totally fine. We'll make our own. So one thing that happens with crayons is they melt together when you mix them. So there's something called friction. When you take your hands and rub them really fast together, that makes them warm. When you do that with crayons, the same thing happens. It makes it warm enough to make it melt together. So it's called friction. So I'm actually going to start with the yellow because I need a yellow-green. So I want to start with the yellow first. And I'm going to color my apple yellow to make the foundation for the color that I need, because it's a yellow-green. So I'm going to put yellow on there first. And now I'm going to put my green, and I don't have to press hard. The green will do its job. You just lightly color right on top of the yellow, and that's going to give you that lighter color green called yellow-green. So we can mix our own colors and make yellow-green. So if you don't have a yellow-green crayon, you can make your own. Now the grapes, a lot of times my students want to make them purple. They're not purple. They're actually red violet. And when you find a red violet looks purple, but it actually says red violet. So if you don't have a red violet, you can make your own by using a red, and then a purple. Purple, another word for purple is violet, so you can mix these together. Now I'm going to use a red violet because it's a crayon that I have and it's a little bit faster for the video. So when you're coloring your second graders now, I should not see them scribble over their grapes. No. We do not scribble, especially as second graders. Maybe when you were 3, you still scribbled, but not anymore. So you are actually going to color every single grape. Yes, every single grape. And the reason why we want to color every single grape by itself, you are the artist, you drew them. So you want to give every single one of these special little grapes that you drew the attention it deserves, and you're going to color each one. It really doesn't take that long. And for artists, we never rush through. We always make sure we take our time doing our work. So it's okay if it takes a little bit of time. So now I have my red, violet grapes. So when we were looking for colors, when we do all of this, orange obviously is the orange, and yellow is the lemon, and the petals on the sunflower would be yellow. But some of my students noticed that there was some orange in the petals, so you can actually mix color right here next to the brown and make a little bit of orange, because if you look at this flower, there's a little bit of orange around the edge. So that's a good artist eye if you see that. And then the inside of the sunflower was brown with the very middle being yellow. And then this vase, notice the difference between this orange and this orange. This is regular, just plain orange. This is red orange. So you want to try and find a crayon in your basket that says red orange. So if you can't find a red orange, you can take red and orange and put them together. So you would do red first and then put orange on top of it because it's a red orange. It makes it a little bit darker than this color orange. So they are different. So you want to keep that in mind when you're looking at your colors. For the gourd, that was just orange, but if you'll notice, there's a couple little yellow spots in there. So I went in and put some yellow spots where I thought the yellow spots were, and then I colored around the yellow spots with the orange just to leave that little yellow highlight that I saw in the gourd. And then the end of it was green. Now when you do the basket, if you have a color called peach or apricot or even a tan, that works great for the basket. Okay, we don't want it to be brown because the table is brown. We want the basket to be different. So if you color this with a peach or apricot, and then if you want to add a little bit of texture, you can take a brown and very lightly color a little bit of brown on top of that tan or apricot color, peach, and that gives it a little bit of texture to make it look like a basket. So that works out pretty well for the basket. And then for the bottle, the blue bottle was blue and the green bottle was green. Now, some of my students think this looks blue-green. It's okay if you use blue-green because in the picture it kind of does look a little blue-green. So if you have a crayon that says blue-green, you can use that. Now there's one more trick I want to show you as a big kid, and it's takes a lot of training for your eye. So, and you guys are still working on this, but I want you to be working and looking for these things. If you look at the green bottle, and you see the green bottle here, the green bottle is actually kind of see-through. You can see through it a little bit. And because you can see through it, you can actually see part of the table underneath. So where the table line goes across the green bottle, if you take the brown and just draw a line right where the table line is, and then very lightly just color the bottom part of the green bottle with the brown, that makes it look like it's see-through and that you can see the table that it's sitting on. The blue bottle's too dark for that, and the vase isn't see-through, but this bottle is. So that's one thing as an artist, you always want to be looking for those little details that make things look a little bit more realistic. So just taking your brown, and after you color the bottle, put some brown at the bottom of that bottle where it crosses over the table, and that makes it look super realistic. So when you're done with your drawing and your coloring, I want you to look at your first drawing that you did all by yourself, and I want you to compare the two. Now, if you don't still have the first drawing, look in your journal and your seesaw. You should have a picture of it in there, and you can see the difference between your first one and your second one. I am sure you're going to see a big kid artist difference. So take a picture of it, put it in Seesaw for your teacher. And I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for joining me today. And until next time, keep drawing, drawing, drawing. Bye-bye.